competitions. But the other part that is so important here, in terms of our position on what your future is the idea of being respected for what you can do in terms of working with the client. The client loses if you don't have that interaction that some people have talked about here. And there are very few professions where people are asked to do all the work before they're even given a chance to be paid. I mean, in other words, you don't get it from doctors, you don't get it from lawyers, you don't get it from, I mean, people can come up with examples on the web. Well, sure, I can buy a brief if I want, you know, from a lawyer, but fundamentally, that doesn't normally happen.
Well, I have a slightly different take on it. I think when agencies were bigger and organizations were bigger, that kind of the understanding of spec that we used to talk about as an organization pitching business or whatever was only exposed to the top level folks. That the folks in the trenches doing the creative work, the designers, the creatives, were exposed to that. They did the work and got paid for the work, and there was no spec model. My sense is that because of all the things we're talking about here, is the size of organizations have changed dramatically. That no longer we see 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 person firms. You'll see lots of smaller individual firms, two-person shops, 100-person shops, very specific in different areas. More people are going to be more exposed to the idea of spec work. I am very. That's a big. It's a big issue for me, not from a design standpoint, but from an entrepreneur. After starting a few companies, I started a company a few years ago, Radar Communications, which was a mashup of anthropology and journalism to do strategy and market research. Can't tell you how many times, first of all, we win maybe 20% of the things we pitch. Secondly, I can't tell you how many times that we would see the work that we proposed being done by another client and by a competitor, right? And essentially what we saw over and over again is that our client who would woo us into coming in and pitching, and I'm sure a lot of other people have been exposed to this, at start with 2 of us or 3 of us, I guess. We would see that they would want our best ideas, we would pitch them, and then we would realize that the client had their agency of record or somebody they had a different relationship with. They were just using us for the idea generation. The way I resolved it for me personally was just that was part of starting a business. So I don't know how it gets resolved. I'd love to ask you that because I think that's what's happening, right? Organizations are being smaller, right?
There's no question. I'm a pretty enterprising person as well. And so I certainly understand the value of being able to pitch ideas. I think one of the differences that traditionally has occurred within communication design is that with advertising architecture, you come up with a concept, and if they select that concept, there are months, if not years, of building to get it done. With communication design, in a speculative context, you could be giving the final product. I mean, nobody builds a website where every bidder builds the entire website and then sees whether they're going to be compensated. It's a very different thing. It's not saying that we're more righteous, than others. It's just that in communication design, if you were to take the simple concept of logo, and I'm making a pitch that you don't want to be there, but if there's a case where the design is done, you pick it, and then you take somebody else's work with, but basically you turn it over the whole creative property. That's different from getting the job to do an advertising campaign, or to get the job to build a website. So that's why it's not righteousness, it's not indignation. It's the idea that the creative effort is the outcome. And you don't, and you're asking people to do all the work without compensation.
And I think that blends well into the idea that you need to rise, going from thinking about design as mechanics to design as thinking, right? Because I think that's where more value is created, right? I mean, the idea that it's not just the logo that you put out there, but it's the whole relationship with the client and helping them think through the problems and problem solving. That, to me, is part of the spec issue. It's how do you help, and I think you guys are perfectly positioned for that. How do you help people get away from, not get away from, but build upon the craft so that it becomes more the craft as a foundation for the design, problem solving, and thinking.
I think the challenge for everybody in this audience is to understand that It is absolutely critical not to be a victim of this change, but rather to be an advocate for changing the respect and appreciation for what you do, which means that trying to get a common voice, a common vernacular about how to articulate the value of your creative gift is absolutely critical to raising the entire appreciation and moving this away from the bottom that's being created by a much more open marketplace towards something that's more valuable, where you make a difference not only in business but also in society and culture. It's an educational responsibility of every designer.
This is the easiest job I've ever had. I'm very grateful. I mean, what a wonderful conversation. Representing a whole range of issues. I mean, there's the issue of compensation, there's the issue of ethics, there's the issue of the social contract between designer and client. So it's been a really nuanced discussion. We want to open it up. We have a very large group of people here. We want to open it up for questions. But I thank you all. I mean, I was fascinated. I wanted to continue. But I heard a voice in my life say that we need to do some crowdsourcing. So we're open to questions. Step up to the microphone and address the questions to the panel or anyone individually on the panel. Yes.
My question is, therefore, from the students, this is not a couple of business people who are typically, but that who are going to be looking for jobs in the near future, rather than the future. How does that affect
The question was that since most of you are students and not business people, how is what we're talking about, how does it impact the people in the room? Is that essentially the question? Well, I think one of the things that was said before was that it will definitely impact what you decide to do or how you decide to do it. So, you know, I think it was all mentioned, you could decide to take your great skills and go on to CrowdSPRING or 99 Designs or whatever, and just win a ton of contests right away and build up a little nest egg. Or realize that you're going to be competing with people who are going to be doing that. And I think it also depends on, you know, it drives, what it means is that you need to elevate what you do, and I think everyone said this here, to a place where you can't be commoditized by the crowd, where you have to be able to bring your understanding of your client, your understanding of the problem, your ability to work with others, your ability to think beyond the problem. That's the crucial thing. So it's very easy to get caught up in the craft as a student. It's very easy to be sort of trained. There are very few academic programs that teach people how to function in a work environment, other than mentorships and internships. And I've had plenty of great designers who are complete assholes work for me, who were able to last for a while based on their talent. But after a certain point, the asshole factor overrode the talent factor, and that was it. So I think one thing is to understand that, which isn't really an issue about crowdsourcing, it's really an issue just about the real world, is that you have to get beyond the training that you have and learn how to be a business person and not a designer.
Yeah, I'd like to add, just, you know, have a voice, whether it's on a blog or on Twitter or in your group. You know, the story I love to tell is, a few years ago, I'm a rock climber, and I was at a local climbing gym, and this kid who's 18, 19, freshman year at CU, named Josh Spear. Who's seen joshspear.com? You know he's no trend. Good. So Josh is just a climber, very good climber. It's like, I'm going to start a blog. It's going to be all about trends and design, and it's going to be really cool. Well, I thought, well, that's really pretty interesting. As much as I appreciated it, I thought that's going to be a hard road to hoe. Well, now he owns a company here in New York, a digital strategy company called Undercurrent. It started from the blog. It's all about his perspective on being digital. And whether you love Josh or you don't love Josh, what I love about what he's done is he's had a voice. He's tried. He's gone out there and put a stake in the sand and just been a part of the conversation and built a business around that. That's really